Hello, my name is Glenn Dyer, and you are watching a Dyer-Situation. Today I'm seeing a United Kingdom. This is, and I just looked up the plot. a drama. Oh, sorry. Let me get to the thing. A British biographical romantic drama film directed by written by, based on the true life romance between I'm going to butcher this man's name, Seretse the first president of Botswana, and his wife Ruth Williams, and yeah, and and Seretse, I hope they pronounce his name Seretse, he's played by the guy who was Martin Luther King in Selma, in that Selma movie. So I don't know how that. So I wonder about this, because Seretse, I'm going to assume, since he was president of Botswana, that he is Botswanan. That's actually, yeah, he would be Botswanan. I'm going to assume that, and but I know for a fact that, like, what's his name? David what is with names today? David Oyelowo. David Oyelowo. He's British. And here's the thing, I know, like, some actors can put on accents and stuff, but, well, considering in Selma, and I think this is the reason that he didn't get, like, a nomination for an Oscar that year, is just, whenever I was watching him, and he's putting on, like, a Southern accent, which comparatively is a lot easier, I would assume, than an African one, it sounded so phony. I didn't even know the guy was British. I had no idea who he was. I was just watching the movie, and I was watching him, like, play Martin Luther King, and I was like, something about his voice is off, you know. and you know, it's not technically that big a thing. It's just your accent, but in a movie where you're playing a very specific biographical character, it's distracting when you realize this person isn't actually from that place, is he? So I'm worried, since, you know, this has happened before, that there might be some sort of something similar here where his accent might not sound very authentic. Then again, I am a dumb American who does not know what a Botswanan accent is supposed to sound like, so it's probable that he could fool me. I mean, I know what a Southern accent sounds like a lot more than a Botswanan one, so, you know, there might be something there. So, but what do I think the movie itself is going to be like? I have no idea if I'm going to remember this after reviewing it. I see a lot that could go wrong. There's, like, especially since this is a story about, like, two people torn between two worlds, and getting a very, like, Roman holiday kind of feel to it, and this is not the source stuff that I like. So, yeah, you have to be doing something kind of special in order to keep interest with that, at least for me. But, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see if it's okay. Let's get to it. What movie did I watch again? Oh yeah. It was that Lifetime Movie of the Week. Yeah. Okay. So that was terrible. Okay, that wasn't terrible. That was lowbrow, stupid, and unworthy of being in a theater. Nah, is that too harsh? It's a little harsh. I mean, it's not terrible, but it is completely uninspired, stylistically bland with absolutely no real reason for somebody to see it. And it's a terrible movie, and no, you're not supposed to. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Okay. So, Loving? That movie that I covered for, like, the Oscars catch-up thing. I didn't do a full review. I just like, mentioned it in the Oscars thing. It reminds me of that. Not just because of, like, the race relations part of it. Like, it has a similar thing. Like, two people from two separate races, they want to get married, and it causes trouble because of the systems in place at the time, right? Same thing. And you know how I criticized the movie? Like, I said, like, well, these two characters, they don't really seem like they should be together. They don't have anything in common. And that made it distracting, It was like, well, why are they going through all this shit to get married if they don't even seem like they would like each other that much? Like, I didn't understand. Well, with this movie doesn't have that problem, you see. Because the king, he has a lot of character. He cares for his people, but he wants to live his own free life, and but he needs to come up with a balance there, and he wants to go back and see his kid, and all this stuff. And his wife, she has absolutely no character at all. So whatever he wants, it totally works. And that's kind of where the movie falls apart. There is a whole thing in that movie. She's left behind in Botswana, and is taken care of by these people. And let me paint the picture for you. When she arrives in Africa, nobody accepts her, of course. Like, all the British people have disowned her for daring to go against the system or something, and all of the African people have also disowned her for daring to go against the system. They're like, what kind of person you think you are? You think you can come in over here and be our queen? Like, it's something like that. But then, throughout the course of the movie, for some reason, they just like her all of a sudden. And it's one of those things you're just supposed to kind of accept. Oh yeah, I guess she's just a nice person, so they like her. But then later, when you think about it, you realize, wait a second, there was no scene where they grew on her, is there? There was no scene where, like, I don't know, there was something that endeared everyone to her, or she did something that would be worthy of them suddenly saying, yes, she's our queen now, and suddenly accepting her, like they do. There was nothing like that. Like, the only clue we get is at one point, she drives over to, like, the supermarket, and just stays in her car, like, scared, I guess? And the lady who I believe is the current king's, not the king that's getting married, the other king's sister. So, like, she comes up and she says, you want to shop for something? And then they do. And then that's it. And is that supposed to be it? Is that supposed to be how they bonded? Is that supposed to be how she was accepted? Because all of a sudden after that, like, well, we accept you now. And that's really just ties into the main thing about this movie. It is based on a true story, inspirational love against the forces of racism and evil, written by 5-year-olds. Like, honestly, though you could say this movie has a good message, it's essentially portrayed like a child writing in crayon on a sheet of paper, racism is bad. And then just slapping that in your face. And you're like, okay, kid, that is a good message. And you feel okay, but, nobody is exactly gonna frame that in a museum, And that's where the movie just completely fails. as a good movie. There, there. You know, I'm sick of saying this when it comes to these based on true story films. I said this with what's it called, Deepwater Horizon. I said it with that. But I am sick of all the people who are supposed to be bad. You know, the antagonists being portrayed as if they were freaking Looney Tunes characters. Like, everyone in this movie who is against our protagonists in any way is not just evil, they are so evil that they may as well all have tiny thin mustaches and little Shih Tzu dogs called Queen Lufa. Like, they have absolutely no... completely one-dimensional, even like half-a-dimensional. Like, how do I describe this? It's so mind-blowing. The first 20 minutes, it's okay. Like, it's just kind of their relationship building and stuff, and, you know, it's nothing too bad. But second they build into the antagonist, this movie becomes a pile of dog shit, and I'll tell you why. Because the antagonistic guy, who's like the British representative in South Africa to represent South African affairs, and, yeah, we all know how South Africa is. At least I hope you do. Well, let's give you a rundown. You know, like, Jim Crow laws and the segregated South and stuff. Imagine that, but like 20 times worse, and lasting until the 90s. That was South Africa, you know. Which is one of the things I do like about this movie. It does kind of highlight the fact that, you know, or at least it's a story about somebody other than the U.S. and their history of racism. We're not alone here. You know, my country is not the only one that has a history of racism. Not that that makes us any better, but, you know, still, I like seeing stories about different things every now and then. I mean, hell, you could do like 20 on Australia. I mean, those guys are creepy. But anyway... what was I on about? Let's see what this was about. Oh, yeah. So, anyway, the guy comes in, he's a representative from South Africa, and he goes into the typist's into her office, right? The girl who's getting married, and he says, "So, I hope you understand that the people in that your marriage will go against the South African consulate's way of apartheid. Do you know what apartheid is? Well, it's where blacks and whites are separated, you see. And so I presume you understand that you cannot get married. Good day." And he does the whole thing with his nose turned like straight up, with just like the most nonchalant, the most like backward ass thing. And every single person who is even slightly against the people, I have to say this, acts like that. This one other evil guy who actually does have a mustache, so it's not pencil thin, who, hell, I don't even know what he does, but he's evil in some way. He acts like him. The Prime Minister acts like him. We don't, like, this mineral guy, he acts like him. Everybody acts like that. There's one scene where, like, I don't know, through some legal bullshit, he's declared himself, like, the current diplomat of Botswana or something, and he comes in wearing this giant white feather hat or something. And it's Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? This movie has no concept of subtlety or nuance. It's just bad people are bad, good people are good, and, like, I don't know. That's what I mean when I say it's like a Lifetime movie of the week. It has no substance to it. But you know what? There is, you know, I can't entirely say I can't recommend this to anyone. I can't say that. there's a few people, you know, like there's people who honestly like this kind of movie. I can recommend this to people who just blindly like any kind of story where love triumphs in the end. This is a movie for you. I know plenty of people who really don't care that much about the story, just so long as love triumphs. People who are looking at it from like a historical context, like this is a dramatization of something that actually happened, you know? Well, that's interesting too. You can look at it just as like a some sort of basic story about like fighting back against evil with not that much to think about. It's just a real basic good against evil, good wins kind of thing. I can understand that too. In other words, the only people who would want to see this are people who are not technically looking to see a good movie. They are looking to fulfill some sort of theme that they enjoy and not see a film. If that makes any sense to you. But you know what? How does this happen? Like, you know how I said, like, earlier, that it is nice to kind of see, like, a story of racism and stuff that isn't set in, like, the US or anything? Well, that kind of ties into the fact that I haven't heard of this story before. Like, I didn't hear about, like, this Botswanan, prince, later prime minister, later president, who, you know, married a white British girl and caused a bunch of controversy. I didn't know about that. This is a unique and interesting story. So how is it that it turns out so bland, dull, and run-of-the-mill like this? And to such a point where it gets such a limited release and absolutely nobody cares about it 2 weeks later, or any weeks later, or even a few minutes after watching it. Why is that? How did it get to that point? And of course now, since it is released, the fact that like if somebody did happen to have an idea for a movie like that, they can't release it. They can't like release that now because this movie's out there and people will start comparing them. So you have to wait like 10 or 20 years. So, like, how does it get to this point? And I have a theory. This is kind of how I perceive the chain of events that go into making a movie like this. Essentially, there's a studio who specializes in just making like biographical movies, and that's kind of what they do. I don't know if that's what this studio does, but that's what I'm theorizing. And they say, all right, we're looking for ideas. What kind of ideas do we have? And some research team they come up with, well, there's this guy. There's this witch prince who once married this white lady and stuff. And the studio's like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. You know, I don't think I've heard that before. I think we can market that the right way. Alright, let's hand this over to a screenwriter so we can put a spin on it. And the screenwriter looks at this premise and he goes, you know, I am not getting any inspiration with this. Honestly, it's a nice story, but I'm not getting anything out of it. So, you know, I'm just going to write like a basic 3-act structure and add in all these elements I like, and I'll let the director add a bit of spin onto it. You know? And then the director gets it. And the director says, well, this script isn't very interesting. I'm not getting any inspiration out of this script, so I don't know, I guess I'll just frame up all the shots and stuff the way I typically do and make it look okay, but nothing too good. And I'll just make it so the actors kind of handle it. We'll get some nice big name actors, and then the actors get into it, and they're like, well, this script isn't much, and the directing is kind of flat. I am not getting any inspiration from this. I don't know. I guess I'll just do my best. And then you get a movie like this, and the studio ushers it out. It sells better on DVD than it does in the movies, and everybody pats himself on the back and moves on. And they're like, well, nobody will ever see it, but you know, I got some money for it. Well, that's my theory. That is my theory on the chain of events that form a movie like this. Is it right? No, not really. There was, and you know what? Like you could argue, like, well, maybe it's not necessarily a story like that brings about a movie like this. Maybe it's just because there are so many based on a true story. Oh, it's so magical kind of things out there. Like, I have to say there was probably like 20 movies I reviewed last year that were like that, like based on a true story. So much drama and tension, all that. And yeah, I guess you can see that, like kind of an oversaturated market and stuff, and that's probably why. But I don't think that explains the whole thing, though. It's because if this movie were in a genre of its own, which would be unbelievable, by the way, like, I don't know, be living in some sort of bizarro world where nobody ever thought to make a movie based on true events before. I can't even imagine that. But, like, let's try to. Let's try to picture that. Let's try to picture this movie having never seen any kind of movie like it. Would it be good then? Hell no. So that's kind of why I think that my theory on the lack of inspiration on all levels is a little more plausible than just it's an oversaturated market. You can do tons of different things that, even though they aren't technically original, you can remix things in a different way and make something that is at the very least memorable. Unlike this movie, it might end up on my meh list, although the very fact that I'm even saying that might disqualify it, but it'll leave no impact. It really won't. Even the people who watch it for the reasons that I said, historical context, for just loving romances, even you will probably just move on to something else afterwards, and it'll eventually just get lost into the recesses of your mind, and you'll never think about it again. Yeah, this is not a favorite of mine. I don't think it has much value, and I cannot recommend it as a good movie. That is, yeah. Even though it's a shame, because, like, some of the performances are okay, and it has its moments. Like, there's this nice speech in it, in the middle, but then they kind of ruin it. Like, they have this, the main character delivers this great speech to his people, and then they ruin it with, like, the most overplayed cliche ever, where some guy stands up and he says, "I'm with you!" And then, like, it waits 10 seconds, and then, like, another person pops up, and another person, and a whole ton of people pop up, and they're like, "Yeah, we're with you, buddy." Like, oh my god. Like, you may as well have had the speech delivered by, I don't know. But anyway. Yeah. It has some nice stuff, but I can never say that I would ever want to watch this movie again. So, until next time, I'm Glenn Dyer, and you have been watching A Dyer-Situation.